per usual.
Okay, you should be good.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Well, we will kick off here, as I know everyone is dying to dive in on all things burnout. Hopefully you are coming here not too terribly burnout, but we are going to do what we can to tackle some key points and kind of just dive right in. So I'm here with my other fearless coach, Julie. We are ready to go. Black attire. And so my guess is most of you know Coach Julie. She's actually Dr. Julie, I should say. Sorry. She's longtime vet, had her own practice for 20 plus years. And now we get the privilege. She has written a book. She has a podcast you all should follow on all things veterinary coaching and covers a lot of different great topics. Her book as well, definitely check out. And then, she gets the opportunity to meet with all of you guys coaching. So has the experience, the background, and now she coaches vets as well. So we will dive into burnout here and get going. So kind of first and foremost is the goal we want to go after is understanding that we really want to create a life that you don't have to feel like you regularly need to escape from. Because a lot of times it feels like when you get that, burnout, get that sense of just exhaustion, the easy thing is I need a vacation, I need a break, I need to just get out, right? But the reality is you do that, you come back, you're usually more exhausted somehow. And, you come back to, nothing's really changed. And so we want to kind of dive into what are those day-to-day, life-to-life, work, personal things that might need to change. Even your thoughts we're going to get into that might need to change to create this sense that you hopefully don't feel like you have to always need that vacation or always need time off or whatever it might be. Although those things are important. So a few things that are just, again, let's do a check-in of you might be burned out if just signs and symptoms that we've kind of done with some of the other ones. Obviously it's kind of, these are obvious, but always worth kind of going through from time to time, physically, mentally. How are you feeling? Are you worn out most of the time? Are you just burning the candle at both ends? Do you feel exhausted? I'm going to move this. Even after a good night's sleep, you wake up, you're still tired, you're still groggy. Coffee doesn't do the trick, right? And you're struggling to concentrate, forget things maybe more than normal, experiencing new pain, headaches. I mean, as I'll kind of tackle later, but there's a great book out there called The Body Keeps a Score. And it's basically, saying your body's always giving you information, constant headaches, constant even physical pain. I've heard recent, like people struggling from like face swelling because of stress. Like your body is always reacting to everything kind of that you're putting it through. And so it's a great marker just to kind of note. And then of course the kind of mental side of it, do you feel the dread? Do you feel like you're working hard, but yet your to-do list gets longer, and nothing's really getting done? A big one, I think both of us, Julie and I, see is it's just you can't turn off. You can't, especially for you guys that are owners, that are PMs, that are doing all the things. Like it's hard, and I get it, having your own business, it's hard to, 8 o'clock, not still be wanting to tackle those emails or switch it off, or even the weekends, but finding those ways to health in a good way, turn it out mentally is a big thing. Not feeling as effective as you used to be. Julie will kind of monitor the chat here too. Some other things are just kind of behavioral changes. Identifying, it's great to know. One thing I do with a lot of people in coaching is just that self-awareness piece of where do you go in stress? Where do you go when you are burned out? Do you cope with food, alcohol? You know, I had one client who it started to be one glass of wine a night, right? And then it's two, and then all of a sudden it's the whole bottle, and now we have this pattern, right? That
another big problem.
Yeah, right. only you can know what many is too many, right? Whatever it might be, but it's like you kind of really start neglecting yourself. Sleep, nutrition, the basics: sleep, nutrition, exercise, spending time with friends, family, doing things that you love and enjoy, and kind of bring that energy back to you. That's a really big sign. And then this disengagement piece is a big one, obviously, where you really kind of stop caring. You're kind of feeling a bit numb, a bit, maybe extra pessimistic. You feel like you really got to drag yourself. You feel a bit detached, numb, all the kind of things that can be signals and signs that, hey, man, I'm just over it and exhausted, and I need a new way, right? I need a new way to do things, to think about things, to approach things. And even you start maybe losing interest in things that do bring you joy outside of work, is a really big sign.
Michaela,
Yeah,
Andrea in the chat said, how do you recognize the signs of burnout early? And then how do you prevent, which we are going to talk about that, I think, a little bit later in the presentation. Yep. But I think just all these signs that Michaela's going over start out small. Like it might be one or two things and not all these things, or it might just be that you don't feel the same as you used to feel about vet med. Like I love vet med. I've always wanted to be a vet. Like that was just my life's goal and love. But then when you get in it, sometimes it gets to the point where you're almost hating it, or you just don't feel that enjoyment. So I think if you start to recognize that you're not really excited, not necessarily about going to work, but just about the work that you do, I think it is a really good way to recognize early before you get into being totally burned out. And then Rachel said, is there one thing to consistently do while you're working to prevent burnout? And I think we'll talk about this too, but one of the things is just pay attention to yourself. Consistently check in with your body. How am I feeling? Am I feeling overly stressed? Is my mind spinning? So we'll go through more, but I just wanted to kind of throw those questions out there so we can keep them in mind, so the people that aren't reading it will know what we're thinking about.
Yep. And one thing quick, and then Julie, I'll let you dive into this slide. That would be one thing I'd say is with some of these areas, kind of do your best you can to go on your kind of own self-awareness journey of what are the early triggers or stress kind of coping mechanisms that are your default go-to, that are your early signs. You need to check in yourself. You need to give yourself more time and attention before it gets to level 10, right? So, for me, I know, if I'm wanting a lot of extra chocolate, right? And emotional eating, and finding myself angry at strangers in the grocery store, things like that, where I'm catching myself, where my emotions are just unstable, and I'm kind of reacting to things that okay, this is not a big deal. Why am I so mad at this guy at the gym that went on the treadmill next to me when there's 3, right, open, down, right, which is maybe just normal. But, why is it creating such is it really about that, right? Or what else is going on? And so kind of I would do that of a kind of self-awareness process of what are those, kind of markers where you kind of go through the progressions, I guess, if that makes sense. But yeah, Julie, dive in.
So this next slide talks about what burnout can be. It doesn't mean that you're just tired and, feeling overwhelmed. It's more of a change in your attitude about your career, which is kind of what I already said. Sometimes it's losing your confidence, or you're kind of an uprising in that imposter syndrome. You'll notice. Sometimes you're just always tired, and not just physically, but emotionally as well, where you just feel exhausted all the time. And it says a sense of no matter how much you give, it's never enough. And that's kind of a thought that we have, right? I'm the only one that's working hard. Nobody else is doing anything. It's almost like that pity party. So if you notice that you're in a constant pity party, that's probably a sign that you're burning out. If you don't care about your clients anymore, and you're like, these people are just annoying and I don't want to deal with them anymore, that could be a sign. Or the patients, even, I think, harder to get angry at your patients. But if you start feeling yourself being angry at the animals, or the other team members, that could be a sign. And it's not unexpected, right? We have a very heavy job. We have to be empathetic all the time, compassionate all the time. There's very, very high standards. And we're also a service industry. So we're dealing with the public, which is no joke. And so if you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling overwhelmed by this job, there's not anything wrong with you. It's just you need some help getting into a better frame of mind. So don't think that it's just you. Like, all of us that work in this career have at times felt like we were either burned out or starting to burn out. The real trick is, can you notice it? And then can you do something about it? And that's why we're talking about it today.
Yeah. As Julie hits the next slide here, anyone want to pause and kind of comment, or vulnerably share any kind of burnout things that's resonated so far, or other questions? Okay, we'll get it out of you later. Don't worry. Julie, keep going. Go for it.
Okay. I like to always talk about definitions. Like, that's one of my things. If you listen to my podcast or you read anything that I write, I love definitions, because sometimes we throw around these terms and we don't really know what they mean. There's these buzzwords. And so burnout is actually the state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion, which is the result, right? Resulting from prolonged stress. And so burnout isn't anything special, other than it's kind of at the end of the road of you not dealing with your stress. So I think it's really important to know that the stress causes the burnout. And so we really need to deal with the stress, because there's no life without stress. And in particular, this job, whatever your role is in the veterinary hospital, it is a highly stressful environment. And so we have to have tools to deal with that, or we do become burned out. And then, like I said before, you get critical, you get cynical, you don't want to strive to do better, and you start to detach from your job and your life, which is even more important. I mean, the real key to what I do and what Michaela does is we want people to have an awesome life. And if you're a veterinarian or you're working this career, I think it's the best career in the world ever invented, whoever invented it. But we want you to stay in it and really enjoy it, because it's such a joyful, but also difficult profession. So when you're feeling burned out, it really just means your life and your work are out of alignment, and you need to understand yourself better in order to work your way out of it, by knowing your values, how much energy you have and need, and boundaries, and these kind of things. So that's why I like definitions. I think they really help us concentrate on what it is we're trying to solve. And so do you want me to go on to the next slide?
Yeah. Yep.
So this is something that I like to remind people, and it sounds really simplistic, but it is a simple way to say a complex thing. Is it's not about your job, because anybody can be burned out on life, no matter what they do. Like I felt burned out as a mother sometimes. I felt burned out as a hospital owner sometimes, as a veterinarian, as a spouse even. Like you can be burned out from being somebody's spouse, right? So it's about the relationship that you're having with your job and how you're thinking about everything in your life. So your thoughts and about yourself. So it's more, the solving part of it is more about solving these things. It's like, how do we feel? How do we think? How do we care for ourselves? It's not just about the job you have, because I could mic drop you guys out of vet med today and put you in a different job, and you would probably still feel burned out in less than a month or two, because life is hard and stressful and you're going to have stress. And, maybe an easier job would help. But I just want you to remember that thinking about it as something that you can work on within you is what's really important, because you can't really change the way the job is in a lot of ways. We're stuck with the clients, we're stuck with the patients, we're stuck with the fact that some days it's busier than others, sometimes a year it's busier than others, right?
Mm-hmm.
So does anybody have anything to say about that, or any examples of themselves of how they felt? Andrea said hers is food, over exercising, and wine. Which, yeah.
Yeah. And on that point, yes. Anybody else put what you feel like are your coping mechanisms of kind of when you start to get stressed, start to get burnout in the chat too. Because I think reminds me, a lot of people, some people have Andrea, to say over exercising, somebody might look at her and be like, wow, look, she's, going and running all these things, and it could be even a good thing, but like overextended, so for, only Andrea can kind of know when she's over exercising or too many marathons or whatever it might be. So those are good watch points too. Like if you're a crazy, clean, neat freak, always have that feels like a good, positive, productive thing, but it actually might be your stress coping mechanism. That's actually not healthy, right?
Right.
So yeah, stress eater, food. I'm with you on the sweets. Anybody else kind of comments as we'll keep going here?
You want to talk about this one, Michaela?
Yeah.
It's self-explanatory.
Yeah, so it is helpful. I appreciate Brene Brown. She has a great podcast. And one thing she talks about is really knowing back to kind of the definitions, because I think the word stress, the word overwhelm, the word burnout are these kind of buzzwords of it's helpful to really truly identify, am I stressed right now? And some stress is good and normal, right? It's life. You're going to have a client who's a bit spicy, and yeah, that's stressful and you got to deal with that. But it's the distinction of when, like the definition said, of when it's ongoing, repeated, and you kind of just feel like you keep getting buried. And so she talks about the difference between, it's if anyone's worked in a restaurant, stressed is when you're in the weeds and someone says to you, hey, how can I help you? And you can rattle off, hey, take bread to table 6. I'm behind waters on those people who just sat down. Like you can give somebody a list and prioritize what needs to be done. But she says when you move into overwhelm and burnout is what they call in the restaurant business, like you're blown. And the antidote for that, the solution for that is that they literally just, here are my tables, and they have to go out and take a break for 15 minutes. And so kind of knowing where you're at, that's one thing I do with my clients now is, can they even present to me a list of what are the priorities that I need to do in my life right now? Like, are you stressed, but you can make a list and you can kind of sit back and give yourself space to think things through? Or are you so just overwhelmed and burn out that you fully need a break? And so I thought that was kind of a good distinction to talk about, where she just kind of says, there's stress, the burnout, and then there's the absolute exhaustion is a good, and I can send out that podcast too. But again, I think it's that prolonged stress you move into, like Julie said with the definition. And again, this is kind of just a good thing to think about, of like, okay, if you're coming here and you are feeling burnout, which of these do you feel like you're in? Like, I know some people in the chat I know are maybe in honeymoon phase, where they're like, new project, new kind of promotion in situation where you're in that honeymoon, all is well. Maybe then some of you, the onset of stress, fatigue come in, and then it just kind of progresses. So as you look at this list, and if you don't feel comfortable, you don't have to put it in the chat, but just again, a helpful kind of marker to do that self-awareness. Okay, of where am I really, what stage am I in? And then what's the proper solution? So we'll kind of keep it moving from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Julie, because a big part of this is how you, like she said, your relationship and your thoughts and how you're thinking about it. So I'll let Julie, you kind of dive in from here.
Yeah, I like this way of thinking about everything when I'm coaching, that a lot of times if we can just figure out what's going on in our body and then our brain, we can solve a lot of problems, because a lot of the feelings that we're having, feelings of stress, feelings of burnout, come from our thoughts. And unfortunately, because our brain is so smart, we don't always know what we're thinking. So even if you're in a really stressful day, like some people really thrive on those kind of days, and that's why there's ER docs, right? The ones that, are slammed and they're just having a good time. And I was kind of one of those people, because I love delegating. So if it got really busy in my hospital and I could just start yelling out orders to people, to me, that was fun. And I got excited and energy from that, where other people might not. So a lot of times it's just how we're thinking about the situation that we're in, whatever it is. So you can't always change the immediate situation, but if you can listen to what your brain's telling you about it, sometimes you can stop yourself from going down the rabbit hole of, hating your job, hating life, or becoming overwhelmed by the stress. So sometimes you're putting too much expectations on yourself. You're doing that perfectionism thing to yourself, and your brain's telling you, hey, if I don't spend enough time with this client or this client, then I'm a bad veterinarian. Like, that thought in a really busy day isn't productive for you, because sometimes you can only spend what you can spend, and you've got to whip through those vaccine appointments so you can take care of the dogs in the back that are dying. So if you're constantly telling yourself, I have to spend this much time with clients, or I'm a failure, just those kind of thoughts. Or if you've had a particularly hard day, do you beat yourself up at the end of the day, or do you beat up vet med because of it? We had a really hard day. It's all the company's fault or the boss's fault. And those kind of thoughts don't really help us create awareness and also solve this problem. So as we become more aware, we can make the space that we need to become better. And Michaela says, anyone have any thoughts that they think in a day that they've noticed in their brain that might either trigger more thoughts of burnout, make you more stressed out. It's a really important skill to slow down and these thoughts here, I won't read all of them, but it's too much. That's one I used to say, no single person can handle this. It's too much. I'm the hardest worker here. Everybody else is lazy. You know, when I was running around my hospital and I saw people chit-chatting, that thought would pop into my head. Why are they just standing around and I'm working? The perfectionism one, the mistake one. I can't stop. I can't take a break. It's too busy. I don't have a choice. And that thought, there's no other option, or I don't have a choice, is a really dangerous thought because it's never, ever, ever true. And I heard this example from a life coach that I was listening to on a podcast. And when her kids were little, she was thinking that, oh, I got to take care of these kids. I got to take care of these kids. And there's no release from that thought. It's like, well, you really don't. There are mothers that don't take care of their children. So if you change that thought to, I want to take care of these kids, and this is a wonderful thing that I'm taking care of my kids, it's that mind shift that makes it feel different. So anybody have anything to say about that? Julie says, I can relate to the I have to do everything thought, which is a victim thought, right? And I have no other choice. And I have no good alternatives. I'll tell you guys a quick story. My husband did this to me a couple times. After I started life coaching, I was still working full-time in my practice. And so he would hear some of the stuff I would talk about while life coaching. And I would get up in the morning and I'd be like, oh, I got to go to work again. And I'd get all like, ugh. And he was like, no, you don't. You don't have to go to work. And I was like, what are you talking about? And he said, you don't have to go to work. He said, you could just quit today and be done. And I was like, ugh, but I want to go to work, you know? And so just that mind shift is like, I have to go to work. I'm choosing to go to work. And then every day when I got up, I'm like, oh, guess I'm choosing to go to work again today because I'm not going to quit. And so just that little bit of shift. And Rachel says, I wish we all worked the school schedule. Yeah, we could though, right, Rachel? You could start a hospital that's only open when schools are open with summertime off. Why don't we do that? Where's Andrea? Can we have some hospitals that are off in the summer?
Let's do it.
Yeah, but just that thought, right? Like, I wish I were a teacher. And then I would say, well, do you really? Like, I would kill all the students if I was a teacher. Like, I would not be able to handle that. So that I would be burned out for sure. Yeah. But I get the appeal of summertime off. That sounds really fun. Mm-hmm. So anyway, so think about your thoughts, which is kind of the bottom line there. Really think about your thoughts.
Yeah.
Do you want to go over this one, Michaela?
Yeah, we can kind of both tackle it. But that kind of reminded me, another, I would say, kind of thought pattern that I see that any of us can get into is that all or nothing thinking. A lot of times these thoughts are like, kind of like you said, Julie, where it's like, I have to do everything, or there's no other choices, right? Where you automatically put yourself in like this ditch, where there's no gray. It's like very black and white, all or nothing. And so very quickly you feel stuck, and it makes sense because you're thinking thoughts that are like, this is my lot in life, right? I just hit ho hum, here I am. And it's that trap, like the slide says, of really it's that victim mentality versus I have authority and power and the ability to go find a solution. And that's, it's easier at times to live in the victim mentality, right? And you get a lot of empathy from people and pity parties but you have power more than I think a lot of us think we do, to kind of make a change or find a solution. And it's these kind of thoughts of, if you find yourself saying in your head or out loud, I have to, I should, versus I get to, I want to, I'm choosing to, I'm deciding to, even things that are like, the gym. Sometimes I like going to the gym. Sometimes I just I'll say it's weights. Actually, I hate doing weights, but I know I need to. And so I have to really be like, no, this is good for me. I'm choosing to do weights because I know it's good for me, right? I still don't necessarily like it, but I'm completely shifting my mindset. I know. What is it? Andrea, I'm with you.
They're boring. Weights are boring.
I know. Exert energy.
That's why we don't like them, because we're all active people.
So, but now I listen to a certain podcast when I'm doing my weights, right? It's like the reward for the pain. But again, I do have to like really think positive thoughts to get myself to go do them. So things like we are short staff versus the well, I'll let you talk about that one, Julie. I'm gonna hit another different one. That I need to do everything mentality, like you said, Julie, other Julie, versus I can stop, I can delegate, I can adjust. So again, the small but really big shifts in your mind of that, just they do really keep you stuck versus, okay, wait, I can stop. Let me really review this. Let me talk to Amy Boss. She's going to help me figure out what I need to delegate, adjust, whatever it might be. Julie, do you kind of want to touch on some of the ones that resonate with you or have?
Yeah, I mean, I think we all like to say that we're short-staffed, especially when someone calls in sick, right? It's like first thing in the morning, you walk into your hospital and so called in sick. So automatically your brain goes into, oh my God, now it's going to be too busy. We're not going to have enough people. And like you start to catastrophize that particular issue. And it's such a common issue in vet med. It's almost like we need to expect it. It's almost like we need to be happy and excited when we do have enough staff. Right. Because, thinking that somebody's not called in sick, we need to celebrate that. So I think sometimes just catching yourself in the moment of being like, oh, now somebody's sick. And I don't mean you can't do that and feel that way. But what I mean is when you feel that way, really ask yourself, okay, is this frame of mind going to benefit me for the rest of the day? Or can I switch my thoughts to make it a little bit less painful? So for instance, I would walk into my practice, somebody called in sick and everybody would be like, oh, freaking out because we're short a technician. I might just stop and say, okay, guys, what can we do? What can we do? Is there someone we can call in? Is there someone we can shift out of their position? If we had 2 techs with this doctor, can we move one of the techs with the one who's, gone back to surgery or whatever? But what can we do? And then go into solution mode rather than, woe is me. Everybody calls in sick. We're always missing people. We're always short staffed. We can't find someone to hire, whatever that narrative is. So sometimes it's empowering to think of what you can do. And the same thing with they're not doing as much as me. Maybe the thought is, well, I'm a rock star because I'm running circles around these lazy people, and that feels better to me than why am I the one that always has to do the work? I'd rather be like, watch me run around these people and do twice the job that they can do.
What, anyone resonate with any of these or other thoughts in your head that you feel like you can catch, or anybody want to share or share in the chat?
And Julie doesn't like the fact that we have the same name.
Yeah. I'll start using.
Sorry, Julie. We should call ourselves something different. Anybody else have anything to say about any of these mindset shifts?
Short staff
days are tough, right? They are.
Yeah.
But what if we didn't call them short staffed? Maybe we just call them minimum staffed or something. Can we change that? Change the wording a little bit to make it sound less dramatic? I don't know. That's something I might do. So This little graph that Michaela just put up is just kind of, there's a lot of different ways to think about this model. Is just that kind of the knowledge that when you're feeling something, it's usually because you're thinking something. Not physical feelings, like sometimes if your stomach hurts, that can be a mental thing. But I'm just saying, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling dread, if you're feeling anger, if you're feeling nervousness, whatever it is, those feelings, emotions are caused by some thought you're having. So when I coach people, I really like to work on awareness of what our brain's telling us, why it's telling us what it's telling us, and that it's all normal. But if you can get a handle on it and you can start to work on it, you can make yourself feel so much better just by sometimes thinking differently and behaving differently. Alexis says, what's a good way to change a doctor's mindset if they're having the negative thoughts outwardly towards the team? Like in the moment they get them to get them to change their perspective from complaining to something more progressive and optimistic. That's hard because it's their brain, right, that you're trying to change. And so when another person is having emotions, that's a circumstance that you're in because of their behavior. And their behavior is coming from their thoughts and their feelings, right? Our behavior comes from our thoughts and our feelings. And so in order to change someone else's mindset, number one, you can't do it. You can make suggestions. You can say, hey, how about if we think about it this way? But if somebody's really bent on thinking negatively all the time, you're not going to be able to change them. So the only suggestion I would have there is for you and the rest of the team to constantly be setting the example of positivity. So if someone calls in sick and the doctor starts to go down the rabbit hole of pity party, the rest of you are like, all right, doc, it's fine. We're all here. We'll get your back. No problem. We'll handle it. Kind of being the cheerleaders. And then you can talk to people like that, if they're always in a negative mindset, and try to ask them to notice the way they respond. But you really can't change people. Can't change other people.
Yeah. I don't know if you've talked to her, Alexis, but definitely use all the tactics to say, hey, when give her examples of like, hey, the other day when you were Kim and you went down the rabbit hole of negativity in this situation, man, that really affects the team, and then the team gets down, and then their behavior gets not great, and the attitude and the morale kind of shuts down. So I would try that to see if like the effects it has on the team, if she can feel that and notice that, and if that can give her any sense of awareness and also willingness to change, as well as to say, hey, would you be open if in those moments I kind of gave you a wink or said, hey, stop, or some sort of cue that she knows I'm going down the negativity, let me just stop. Maybe you and her can just go kind of get a game plan together and then reset with the team. It kind of just depends on your relationship with her, if that's something that, she'd be open to. But it is hard because there are some people that just have a very negative, woe is me. And those are probably not long lasting on most teams. And yeah, so I would say, like Julie said, she has a member that's prone to it. Yeah, ask them if they have any ideas to improve. Absolutely. I would say whatever you can to help them see the effects of it, that, hey, this, when you come at it with this way, this negativity, man, the team, and then we're behind, and then we're all in a bad mood. Anything to help kind of put a mirror up to create that self-awareness from them is ideal. And then, like Julie said, it's a great idea to just get the team to rally. And also, I'd say walking on eggshells, if you can address it with the team so that it's like the elephant in the room, right? It's good when the leader just says like, hey, okay, I know at times, Dr. I can't say Smith. We have
You can
Smith.
use me. Dr.
Dr.
Capel loses her cool.
She loses it.
Sometimes she
you know,
loses it, which I was.
Yeah, you could
I
say-
would sometimes lose it at my hospital for sure. We all
Yeah.
do, right?
You could say, hey, I'm working with her, and in those moments, what could we do to kind of help her? So you're not all, like you said, just walking on eggshells, and everybody feels the awkward tension.
I think too, Michaela, I think that fear of addressing somebody when they're in that frame of mind keeps us from doing something about it. So if somebody's really reactive and they're like one of those people that's very vocal and explodes easily, and you know that about them, sometimes just having the guts to step in, not walk on eggshells and try to like pacify them, but just to walk in and say, hey, what can I do for you? You seem to be really upset. What can I do? How can I fix this for you? And just kind of like walking into the fire. And if they yell at you, like let it go in one ear and out the other, because it's not coming at you. It's coming from their thoughts about themselves. Usually they're usually stressed out about what they can't handle. But sometimes just offering, like I had some very reactionary people. And if I just said, hey, it seems like you're really stressed out. What's going on? What can I do? And if they said, well, I just have 4 clients waiting and I'm behind, and blah, 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 I'd say, okay, well, can I take one of your clients then? Would that help? Just like giving, like kind of pushing through and giving a solution, because sometimes then you're calling out their behavior to them to be like, look, you're freaking out and I'm noticing it. I wouldn't say that to them, but I might say, hey, what can I do? Seems like you're really stressed. And then sometimes they'll be like, oh yeah, I'm really stressed. Here's what you can do. Or can I just take a 5-minute break or whatever? So don't always walk on eggshells. I think sometimes walking into that fire is important.
Yeah. And I like you said, Rachel, well, like Julie said too, Coach Julie, that she said, hey, what can we help you with? And sometimes they'll be like, I don't even know. And then say, do you want me to offer you some solutions of what could help? So it could be the both end. Give them the opportunity to give you the solution, or you might need to present some. But yeah, keep the questions coming in. I might come back to that one. But yeah, we're gonna kind of move into kind of more solutions. What can we do to move towards the less burnout? This is kind of like before, build that self-awareness. Let your symptoms, the things that are kind of your go-to default coping mechanisms, give you pause, that you kind of notice, okay, it's the second time, day in a row where I've been angry, getting out of bed or whatever it is, where you let those things kind of, like Julie said, give you pause, create that space and awareness you need to, like, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Go through the kind of checklist of mentally, financially, relationally, physically, emotionally, career, intellectually. Are there certain areas that are like really the root of my stress, anxiety? Is it relational? Is it that I've been battling? Like this weekend, I had this crazy, I'm not allergic to anything. I had this crazy allergic reaction. I woke up, if anybody's seen the movie Hitch, like my lips were like duck lips. It was like filler gone wrong, but it wasn't filler. So anyway, it was all weekend. I was like, yesterday I had to go to the ER. Anyway, but I was like stressed. I came home and I was just like exhausted. I was like, well, no wonder, because I've been like, it's just been constant trying to get it sorted. And so, health problems are huge, as we know, financially, career, all of it are just, there might be kind of one that's really dominant that's kind of causing everything. And then I mentioned this book before, great book to read, The Body Keeps the Score. But again, it just talks about one thing it talks about, which I think is so interesting, how it says years ago, decades ago, a long time ago, our stress was like running from bears and tigers and not getting bitten by snakes. And psychologists realized that they thought the stress, once you ran away from the bear and you're behind the bush, that, okay, the stress is gone, like all is well, right? But they realized the act of running away from the stress and releasing the stress from your body is actually what removed the stress. It wasn't even the fact that the bear's gone. It was the fact that you released it from your body, because the body's always keeping score. And so I always think this is a good kind of point of, you may have dealt with the stress. You may have gotten rid of that toxic person on your team or whatever it might be. But have you actually released all the emotions? Have you kind of worked it out? Have you journaled? Have you just like vented about it to a friend, where it's like, oh, not only are they gone, but it's like, it's out of you, right? You're not still dwelling on it and thinking about it. Because I know I've talked to Coach Julie too, and we've had, clients where it's like, they're still ruminating on it, right? But yet the stress is gone. And so I think this is always a good point to remember. Or if you're dealing with like a trauma and haven't really dealt with it, haven't worked through it, it's affecting your body, your thoughts, everything. Julie, any more you kind of want to say about any of that, or I'll let you go into some of these?
I think just your point about the physical part of all of this is that it does indeed affect your body. Like many of us, and I know me personally, have probably had issues where you were stressed about something, but then you thought you were sick because you were having heart palpitations or stomach issues or, whatever. And it wasn't anything to do with your physical body. It was more to do with the stress you were carrying around. So I think just being aware of that and aware how your body does hold on to things. And then what do you need to do to release it? Like, do you need to just jump around? And I used to hate pulling teeth. And when I would finally get the tooth out, because my body would be like this after working on it for 30 minutes or whatever, I used to jump around like Rocky and sing, because it was like all that tension in my body. It was like, for some reason, just the celebration would help me kind of release all that, I hate dentistry kind of thoughts and stress. So just kind of be aware of what's going on, not only in your body, but what you need to do when you have that like mean client. Like maybe you do need to take a walk into the bathroom and take a minute, or maybe you do need to meditate, or maybe you do need to take a walk. There's something that you can do physically to release it.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else do anything weird to get the stress out of their body besides me?
It's great. It's great. Smart idea. Stress,
like the power posing. Like if you've ever heard of power posing, it really helps your body to change your mind.
Yeah.
One of the things I've learned that's really cool in working with the therapy dogs a lot, and when they do work with people that are having intense emotions, you'll watch them, they'll walk away and they'll shake. And so dogs will use a shake to change their body. So anyway, I think sometimes we could do a little Taylor and shake it off too.
Right.
Just shake a little when you're getting stressed out, or after a particularly stressful thing that happens in the hospital. Yeah, I think it's really important to just know that connection.
So caring for others never meant to come at the expense of caring for yourself, because eventually you're not going to be the doctor you want to be. I had this yesterday at the ER. The lady that checked me in, I mean, she asked me the questions, do you feel like, do you want to harm yourself? Do you have people in your house that, I was like, whoa, questions. But like she was, she's just stressed, going through the emotions. And then I go to my doctor, and my doctor was amazing, smiling, looked me in the eye. And it was like, I had compassion for the first lady because you could see how stressed she was. But it's like, that's the business you all are in, right? The ability to take care of yourself so you can take better care and be present in the moment for your clients, your pets, your team. So it matters. It matters a lot. Julie, I'll let you.
So this slide, I think, is just meant to make us remember that if you're feeling any of these feelings, high stress, burnout, overwhelm, whatever you want to call it, but you're having something going on, that's your brain and your body signal that you need to do something about it. So you need to reassess, realize that it's happening, and then take charge, which either means taking care of yourself better or getting someone to help you. So these questions will help you figure that out. Are you living in alignment with your values? Are you over giving and not taking care of yourself? And are you expecting too much from yourself? Because we have a tendency to do that. We're highly, highly driven people in this profession. And we always think we need to do everything to the nth degree. And if you have unrealistic expectations that you can never reach, that's chronic stress. So slow down, ask for help. That's why the life coaches are here. That's why your bosses or the other people in the organization are here. And then I guess just taking small changes. And that's basically what this slide means, is you can do little things that are definitely going to help you. You don't have to overhaul your whole life. You don't have to quit your job. You don't have to adopt out your children to another family. Like, you don't have to do drastic things. If you have kids and you own a practice and you're also a veterinarian working full time, and I went through all those things, you can do it all. You just have to realize when it's getting to be too much and then do something about it. Ask for help, take a break. Even if it's a 5-minute break, do something for yourself is really the important thing. And or set a boundary, which was our other thing that we talked about a few weeks ago, right?
Yeah.
Set some boundaries. Say
I
no.
mean, I think all of our trainings are so not realized at the time, so connected.
They overlap.
Because so much of burnout, I think, is your ability to have great boundaries. Can you say no? And then our last training, delegate. Can you delegate? And then I thought this was good. Julie put in these of, how much of your identity is wrapped up in being a vet, and making sure you have that connection with your family, with other friends, with, a life outside of, the vet world, because, if one thing goes wrong or something doesn't work out, it's like your whole world collapses. And then, then you talk about bad thoughts, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Med is an amazing job and it's a great job, but it's not your life. Like, your real life is your family and your hobbies and your joy. Like, that's what your real life is. And so sometimes as veterinarians, we intertwine those so tightly that we can't unravel them. So just that realization that, yes, it's a career, it's a calling, it's all those wonderful things, but it's also still just your job. And we want to do it well, but we also don't want that to be the only thing in our life, because it's a job. We're doing something to make money.
So ask for help. And yeah, so anybody want to share last kind of few minutes here, small change, thoughts, anything we talked about, more questions, real quick at the end here?
Please go to coaching, guys. You have the opportunity, get your coaches, work with them. You're in charge when we coach you. And so whatever you want to work on, we're here to help. And if it's not us, then reach out and we'll find the right person for you.
For sure.
Because it really does make a difference.
Yeah. Any other last thoughts, questions, comments? Throw in the chat. changes or what resonated most with you. And yeah, reach out, email to of like things that are helpful or things that you want more information on. We can send you and kind of go from there. But yeah, if not, we'll leave you to your 2:00 appointments. Checking in on yourself. Love it, Rachel.
Thanks, guys, for coming and listening. It's really important. This is your first step in doing stuff for yourself when you take the time to do this kind of thing.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you, guys. We'll be.
Bye. Congratulations, everyone. Do a good job today. Save some lives.
There you go. Bye.